One of the interesting combinations that is found in the fungal world is are the combination of algae, which produce by photosynthesis produce food, and fungi themselves. And they have come together in a symbiote kind of a relationship to create lichens, which are distinct and unique unto themselves. And there are lichens all over the world, of course, some growing on rocks, some growing on trees. In this particular case, we have one growing on a fallen log. And the relationship is such that the algae provide the photosynthesis, and the fungus provide the structure, so that together they actually can survive in environments that they normally couldn't. Lichens have been found as close as 60 miles away from the Antarctic center, which is amazing. And they are very often considered to be some of the first primitive out-of-the-ocean plant or symbionts that came to begin to break down rocks on the early planet hundreds of millions of years ago to produce soil that then set the stage for plants many years later. There's often a funny saying that Annie algae and Freddie fungus got together and got married, but now it's on the rocks. This lichen is, some of the lichens are quite medicinal, and many of them are articulated and found, have compounds in them that were for both food and medicine, and very unique. And if you'll notice on the other side, you'll see how quite white this particular lichen is. Some lichens, such as, say, lungwort, the name gives you a clue as to their uses for respiratory conditions. Recently, a couple of months ago, I was in Iceland, and Iceland moss, Cetraria icelandica, is a food that is used all over the country, that's added to soups and stews, and is quite delicious and nutritive and soothing, demulcent, cooling, wonderful, wonderful medicines. Usnea is the most famous of all the lichens in the herbal world for its ability to show activity against strep infections, Staphylococcus aureus, including MRSA, and the tuberculinum bacterium, which is a mycobacterium which are often associated with tuberculosis.
One of my favorite herbs for the immune system is usnea lichen. Usnea grows on dead wood, and often it'll be on either stumps, or it'll also be on the older wood on the lower parts of trees. And I found it on evergreens and on hardwoods. But this is a dead fir tree that we're looking at, very common in the north woods. Here is the true usnea. It's a different species than the usnea that grows in the Pacific Northwest. And it's much smaller, but there's a similar way to ID this lichen. It's always attached to the wood on a single stem. So I can pull it off. You can see where it's attached only in one place. Also, usnea species have a unique way of growing in which they have a light green sheath that covers a white thread inside. And so if I'm unsure, I take one of the branches and I scrape with my nail at the light green sheath. And eventually I'll expose the white thread underneath. And you can see it there. And after a rain, if these lichens are moist, that white thread will actually be very elastic and it'll even stretch. It takes a while to harvest a full jar of these, but I walk through the woods and gather these into a jar, and then I prepare back at camp, I make a tincture of these. And the way you need to prepare usnea is heat it in water first. And my teacher in the Northwest, Cascade Anderson Geller, taught me that the usnic acid is heat activated. So I heat it up in a little bit of water before tincturing it in 70% alcohol. And I use usnea similar to how we use echinacea. It's an immune system stimulant, and it's particularly powerful for respiratory infections. But I use it for all internal and external infections. Can harvest it any time of year, and usnea is actually the genus name. In the Northwest, they call this plant old man's beard because it grows in huge sheets off the trees.
So lichens are a very, very valuable part of the fungal world and much misunderstood. And the splitters, of course, would say that lichens are not really truly a fungus. And they may be correct on some level, but I like to include them, and I definitely included them in my book, The Fungal Pharmacy.